trying to be a better instrumentalist. And then there's been a period of time where I've completely shifted away from that, been like, no, I really want to I want my Pro Tools chops to be down. And then there'll be a period of time when I was like, hey, Melodyne, I got to get on that. I got to I've got to just
buckle down.
Exactly. Just hunker down, be as quick and efficient on that as I can be. So whenever that comes up, I'm ready to go. And I think in a way, shelter in place has kind of helped with that because I'm close to all of my tools and resources. So it's really easy for me to hop around. And I think because using Ableton as well, I'm kind of getting more into doing that. So yeah, I'm never at a loss for, I guess, pursuits. There's always it's just kind of a matter of me committing to, and even if it's I work on it for a day and I never touch it again, but just kind of I think just kind of that's been the biggest sort of growth for me is actually acting on these things. There's a period of time when the majority of people would consider electric bass to be my primary instrument, even though I really I love guitar, but there was a significant period of time where I had this absolute obsession with electric bass, where it was I think over the course of my college career, I wrote at least 4 essays on different facets of electric bass and just kind of was head over heels into that. And now I'm kind of I'll just take the smallest spark. I'll just find a video of this guitarist I really admire called Amber Russell, who she plays exclusively acoustic fingerstyle guitar with harmonics and tapping and percussion on the body of the guitar. I saw and using banjo capos and all this stuff. So I just it'll literally just take seeing one video of her for me to be yeah, that's gonna be my little extra thing right
adventure.
Now. Yeah, so that's kind of and that has been recently. Now I'm actually in the very, very early process of starting to create some remixes off of some of the tracks off this EP now too, which is
cool.
Super fun, doing that in Ableton and kind of getting my chops up with that, or finding a new piece of gear. I think there's so much out there, and I'm just kind of constantly have my antennas up for new gear and just being in touch with other musician producers, seeing what they're working on. So yeah, I think for me the struggle isn't finding things to be inspired about. It's kind of just pushing myself to actually act on them. And again, even if it's I work on a Phantogram cover in Ableton with sampling for one day and then don't touch it again, that was a day well spent.
Yeah, there was a time when I was just trying to improve, and I would say, okay, every day I have some time in the studio, I'm just going to make a beat. Yeah. I'm going to make a short little jam. Mm-hmm. And it was really good for me. They weren't great, but it kind of got the creativity flowing, and my knowledge of making beats and the DAW just got better. Do you have a philosophy for mixing?
I wouldn't say I have a strong philosophy. I think I just kind of, I'm very collaboratively minded. It's kind of rare for me to do something in a wholly insulated setting. Obviously, when you work at a recording studio and you have clientele, a lot of the time it's entirely on you. But I think I kind of always try to think beyond myself and beyond my personal tastes and preferences. And I think for me, the big thing about mixing is just developing, it's almost objectivity stamina. How long can I go and how deep can I get into this session while still just not losing perspective of the ultimate goal of this music. So I think I don't have necessarily a singular philosophy on it.
Any tried and true approaches that you use?
Lots of parallel processing for a lot of the bass. You'd be surprised how many parallel tracks there are just on bass of just saturation and just kind of, yeah, I think just kind of making a lot of use of just really subtle parallel processing, not just compression, but just kind of to add these little dimensions to it. So I think that's kind of something that I've really gotten into and really kind of use a lot. And I think just kind of doing a lot of work to add like both cohesion but also like dimension, like and kind of making these tracks, because a lot of the tracks that we have, like especially some of the more like up tempo ones, like they have a lot of like rise and fall, or even like a bunch of, I think the ballads as well, they have like the sort of rise and fall and these like shifts in energy. So kind of just finding really subtle ways to create these energy that's like more felt than heard, which I think, I mean, a lot of that I give credit to, again, like shout out to Piper Payne, who mastered the EP, because she like has a really natural knack for that as well, and was super helpful in kind of capitalizing on the work that we did to kind of add this drama to what could otherwise like be viewed as a pretty static arrangement.
Yeah, she's like automated within the mastering process to kind of make things hit harder at certain points and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I mean, I know for me personally, I do so much of automating everything from like EQs and cutoff frequencies within a track, depending on how, like for when like the arrangement gets more dense and I want the bass to sit in a different area. Yeah, I think just automating like a lot, like kind of, I think just not straying away from fine-tuned automation and like lots of just kind of getting into the details, and yeah, just kind of not being afraid to slap on a plugin that's gonna be bypassed everywhere except for 5 bars. But kind of just like knowing those little things that make a difference. And, I think just kind of, I know for me personally, and both like me and Isaiah, I think it's kind of, it was one thing I kind of came to realize, in our very early in our collaboration, that we both kind of have high attention to detail and tendency to go extra. In other collaborations I've had, there's the tendency to kind of regulate that and pull back, but we've kind of always encourage each other to go the extra on that, which I mean, sure, it means it took us a year and a half to do a 5-song EP, but I think like the result of it, and I think it was because of like my insistence that we just like, I mean, it's funny because like I want to do like playthrough videos of the song, but I also literally want to do like the equivalent, like the mixing equivalent of a playthrough video, where it's literally just like shows all like the bypasses and like send faders going up and down and like all that stuff, and just like have like a screen capture of like the Pro Tools session and just show like all of the sort of fine tuning that no one ever notices, but I think those are the things that make it really powerful. So I think just kind of cool. Learning to never shy away from getting deep into the weeds.
Love it. Yeah. Wow. So Layla, this has been really fun and eye-opening. What before we wrap up our call, what's one thing that you kind of wish you had known, or you're happy you did know at the beginning of your journey, that you can maybe share with somebody who's just getting started?
I think just not to limit yourself, even if like, I mean, because I viewed recording studios as being magical for many, many years, but I got my start in live sound. And even though like I don't really do live sound that much anymore, with kind of a couple of like specific exceptions, like it takes a lot more for me to do live sound than like when I first started. But I would say just learn, like, never shy away from learning something new, because you never know when it can help. If you like are sure that you just want to do like live sound and be like go on like work like tours and be like whatever, like experiment with sound design, like learn about like sound for film and like composition. Like if you don't, like I know for me, like I did choir for 4 years, but I like don't consider myself to be a singer by any means, really. Although I'm kind of, now that we have this band, that is kind of like a lot of the productivity in the band is directly contingent on my willingness to sing or not. So I'm kind of in the process of getting over that. But I think just kind of, and one of the reasons why I'm like pushing myself to sing more, in addition to like, you know, the necessity of this band, is so that when I like am producing a vocalist, I feel slightly less awkward being like, hey, like rather than just being like, hey, read my mind and this is the note I'm thinking of. Actually just like feeling comfortable just like singing it and like working on it, because like I can hear it in my head, but I sometimes just kind of like have that like block. So I think just even if you have found the thing you're passionate about and the thing that's going to make you happy for the rest of your life, don't let that deter you from trying 10 other things. Even if all you learn is you hate it, you never want to set foot in it, like near it again. I think just obviously in some fields there is value in specialization. I think mastering is a very clear example of that. Like, I mean, if you want to become a mastering engineer, like those are the cases where I'd say, like, you know, maybe don't like sign up to run the soundboard at clubs and bars every other weekend. Maybe kind of just focus on that particular thing. But I think in general, and especially when you're starting out, take on everything. Like every opportunity you have to learn, every professional you get to observe, like take advantage of that, because even if it's not what you end up wanting to pursue, you will always learn something and it'll always come back to benefit you.
That's awesome. That's wise advice. And I've heard it from a couple other people, and I think it's true. Especially at the beginning, you really want to like test the waters and just also see what works for you, and see what gives you, you know, what lights a spark for you. And you don't know until you try it, I guess, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing is also, I mean, I would say observe the professionals around you, but also, I remember a lot of times, like, when I would sit on sessions, I would be taking notes, and I would take notes on everything the engineer did, and I would also take notes on, oh, this is interesting because I would have thought to do this, and then the engineer did this. But, like, kind of take note of both of those things. Because I think a lot of times this has come with, like, me as a musician as much as an engineer, is I've kind of had these like suspicions of like, oh, this might be a cool thing, but I've never seen anyone else do it. But try it and see, and maybe you're onto something, and maybe because like you're coming at something from sort of a more naive outsider approach, that doesn't mean that you don't have knowledge. It just means you have a different perspective, which, I mean, just because you see someone do something different than you doesn't mean that the engineer you're shadowing doesn't know anything and you know more than they do, but it doesn't mean that you don't know anything and you should follow blindly everything that the person that you're shadowing does. So I think it's just kind of, I mean, yes, which I think again just kind of goes with like learn as much as you can, be a sponge, and be aware of your own preferences and tendencies and kind of trust those. Because I think when I first started, I didn't really, like a lot of the questions I would ask the engineers I was like shadowing and assisting were just questions that like I would ask because I didn't trust my own thoughts on them. So like I would ask questions about things and they would just be like, well, what do you think? And then I would think through it and think like, okay, well, I mean, I feel like this is how I feel, but I hear a lot of things in music that my ears and my brain disagree with, and I don't necessarily agree with how they go about it, but I personally feel this way about it. And they're like, cool, that's great. You can trust that. You don't need to, like, you can look inward for skills and inspiration and techniques. It doesn't all need to come from what you see other people do or what you hear. I mean, I think I've learned as much about mixing from hearing mixes I don't like at all as I have from listening to really great mixes.
Yeah, I love that. There's been a lot of times in my path where I've kind of had to accept that I hear things how I hear them. And even if it's not like the correct way, or it's like when I had my first record mastered in like 2013, I hated the first master and I had to go in and redo it. And now I don't like it anyways, but I had to follow my own voice because otherwise I wouldn't have released the record. It had to be how I heard it.
Absolutely, you know? Yeah. I think like Yeah, that's kind of, I mean, I think with this EP process, because we've both been so heavily involved in it, it's kind